In this video, we will show the first steps towards building a simple Analogic application. I will show how to create pages, create widgets in them, set widget parameters, and add simple events to the widgets. I will be using Cedar as our development tool of choice, as it allows for faster development, but Analogic applications can also be built with other IDEs, such as VS Code or PyCharm. The use of these will be detailed in a later video. I'll assume that you already have the Analogic framework installed and already created at least one application in it. If you haven't done that yet, check out our video on how to do it. The link is in the description. When you open Cedar, first you have to go to the Interface Builder module. As a first step, you have to import the application. You enter the URL of the framework, where the application will run, and then click on List Framework Application. Then select the application you want to import to Cedar. After that, you get this screen. For the version name, you can use any number or text you want. Usually we go with 1.0, 2.0, etc. After you imported the application successfully, you get a message, and then you go back to Cedar, where you will see the imported application with the given version number. If you click on the version name, it opens the Interface Builder editor. The Analogic applications are built as collections of pages, so the first step is to create a main page. We will name it KS Academy main page, and here we have the first page of the application. Now we have to add functional elements to the page, which are called widgets. Analogic applications are built in a low-code environment as a hierarchy of widgets. This allows for easy code reading and makes the structure of the application fully transparent. When building complex planning applications consisting of lots of pages and widgets, this transparency greatly reduces development time and offers easy maintainability. In our example, first we create a grid row widget with pressing the Enter, which is a meta widget for keeping other widgets in a horizontal structure. We will name it Grid Row 1. After that, we create a grid cell widget. We name it Grid Row 1 Cell 1. As you see it, initially it's on the same level of the hierarchy. But if you press Ctrl and right arrow on your keyboard, you can move it under the grid row widget, so it becomes an element in the horizontal structure. You can take this step even before you create the widget. You simply press Enter to create a new widget, then press Ctrl and right arrow, and it will go under the widget above. Now we create a text widget that will sit in the previously defined grid cell. We name it Grid Row 1 Text, and this will be our title on the page. Here in the third panel, you can see all the relevant codes and parameters that describe the widget's look and behavior. The widget config, the events map, the repository GS, and the UAML code parts. Now we choose only the widget config part, which basically describes its visual properties. In Analogic, you can set a wide variety of parameters for every widget, which allows almost any layout or appearance to be implemented easily. By default, you only see the parameters that are in use, but if you click on All Properties, you can see all the parameters that you can use to customize a grid row widget. Now I set the height to 10%, then I press Ctrl+S to save it. I also set the width to 100%. For the grid cell widget, I set the width to 20% and set the alignment to center left. For the text widget, I set the height here to 145 pixels. I can save the number just like that, or I can add px for pixels. Alternatively, we can write a % sign to use relative height instead of fixed pixels. I also set the width to the same as the height. I also want to add an icon before the text. I will use icon_product groups as an example. We can also use skins for widgets, which are basically CSS templates for a given widget. We use these to speed up the parameterizing of widgets. We can access the skins here. As you can see, we already have one skin in this application for a text widget, but we can make others quickly. As you can see, I created skins for the title, body, inner, and set the CSS parameters I want for the skin. And after I'm ready with the CSS code, I have to press Ctrl+S. Then here, I can give the name for the skin parameter. I can give one of the skin names defined here. I will add a title here. Let's set it to KS Academy. We will set the font size to 45 pixels. I set the font color here to black. This is something we can do in the CSS as well. For the grid row, we'll make another skin. Here we can set any CSS, just like in the text widget. I will set a border for the grid row. If we make any errors in the CSS, we will get a warning message. As you can see, I forgot a 9 from the hash mark. After correcting that, I named the CSS bottom border main3 and set this as the skin name parameter. Now we made the first row. Now I can press deploy, and I get the message that the deployment was successful. Now I can refresh our application and see the KS Academy title. Now we need to modify it a little bit to look better. To see any changes you make, you don't always have to deploy the files in Cedar. If we change the screen resolution a little bit and have the preview in another window, I can see the changes live. If I delete the icon and delete the values for width and height for the text widget and press the preview button, I can see the changes immediately in the preview window. This allows for quicker development as we don't have to wait for the files to be copied. But we have to be careful because this does not save the changes either. If I refresh the page, it will be set to the previous version because we didn't deploy the code. The title suits us now. Now we will make our second grid row widget. We will name it Grid Row 2. We will create a new grid cell widget in the hierarchy. We will create a second grid cell widget because now we want to make one of our first main page buttons to navigate to a subpage. So I will add a button widget to the grid cell. I now added a button widget, but if I made a mistake and want to change the type, I can do that in the Properties tab, and the parameters will change as well. But now we need a button widget. For the second row, we will set a 5% margin top parameter. For the first grid cell, we will set the width to 30% and the height to 20 pixels. For the second cell, we will set the width to 12% and the height to 20 pixels. For the button widget 2, we can set here the height and width for the button, and also add an icon. We will use the same icon, but here we are going to make a more detailed CSS. I'm gonna set it to full screen because it's easier to code this way. We want a button skin. We will name it as button main blue. We can also set the height here, but it's not necessary because we already set it in the parameter list. I will set the background color to blue, and I will set the border radius parameter too. I will create the CSS for the icon as well. Let's set the icon color to white and the font size of the icon to 100 pixels. Now I set the content CSS. Here I set the height to 100%. I can also set a mouse over parameter for when the button is active, but for now I just use the same color as the icon. When I press Ctrl S, we get an error. I made a typo in the parameter right here. I change it, and after that, we can save the skin. Now I set the skin parameter here to main blue, and now I press deploy. Deployment is successful, and we can reload the page. We got the icon. Now we need a title for the button, so we are going to make another grid row widget. We name it Grid Row 3. You can name the widget any name you want, but you can't have two widgets with the same name. The widget name serves as a unique ID. Below the grid row widget, we make the first cell widget. Below that, we make the other cell widget that has the same structure as the second row. And below that, we now make a text widget because we need a title. For the first cell, we set the width to the same as before, 30%. For the second cell, we set it to 12%. The height we set to 6%. We set the margin top to 2% to have a little bit more space from the text widget. We will set the title as head count. We align the title in the center. We set the font size to 16 pixels. We set a black font color. Earlier in the video, we created our menu and menu 2 skins. Here we will use the one named menu. Now I check the preview and we see that I have the head count title here. Now I press deploy and refresh the page, and I can see that it's still there. But I want to modify it a little bit to have the title under the button. My mistake was that I didn't put our grid cell widget under the grid row widget, so I simply select the widget, press Ctrl and right arrow, and now in the preview we can see it looks perfect for us. If you want to move widgets up or down in the hierarchy, instead of left and right, you can do that as well. Just press Ctrl and the up or down arrows, and it will change the structure as you see. But right now we need it this way. Now we are going to create another page. it will be called Chaos Academy Headcount. Here I create another grid row for the title, but we don't need to create it manually, like on the main page. We can simply right-click on the page widget name and select Copy an Entire Widget. Here I choose the project, the version of the project, and search for the grid row widget. Now I select the specific one I want to use. In this simple example, it might not make much sense to use the copy function, but in more complicated cases it can be invaluable. This function allows for complete sections of the widget hierarchy from other pages or other applications to be reused instantly, no matter how complex they are. So this is probably the most important function in the whole Cedar, as it allows everything we ever built to be reused quickly. To reuse stuff, however, we have to change the names of the widgets. We have a replace function for that. For the search string, I will put the string we want to change. Here, it is the Chaos Academy main page part of the widget ID. We will replace it with Chaos Academy Headcount. Now we can copy the widget. Here we have the same widget structure and the same parameters we set in the main page. I just have to change the title parameter to Headcount. So we have this other page. Now we write a JavaScript code for the button widget to open our Headcount page. It's very easy. You just open the repo part in the third panel and click on the repository code. You can edit this on full screen too. For the button widget, we will use the launch event. I just write launch and use our API.openPage event and define the page I created. I press Ctrl+S and it will automatically fill the widget ID on top. I press deploy, and if the deployment event is successful, I refresh our application. Now in the application, when I click on Headcount, it will navigate to the second page. To have a little bit more functionality, I want to put an arrow here to navigate back to the main page. I will use another button widget for that. I'll name it Row 1 Cell 1 Button. And in the Properties tab, I'll set the icon as Icon Arrow Back. I'll use 20 pixels for the font size and black color. I will set a 20 pixel margin for the grid cell to make it look a little nicer. Now we deploy it. On the Headcount page, we also need to write a repository.js code like before for the launch event. I use the API open page action and set it to open the main page. I press deploy and refresh the page. Now when I go to the Headcount page, I can navigate back to the main page with the arrow. In this video, we have learned how to build a simple Analogic application from pages and widgets, and how to set the appearance and the basic behavior of the widgets. In our next video, we will delve into the topic of creating the most important elements of planning applications, tables. We will examine how to create these widgets, how to pull data into them from the Planning Analytics TM1 database, and how to set their appearance and behavior. The link is in the description. Thank you for your attention and stay tuned.